Hello, everyone. Charles Watts here. Welcome back to Inside Arsenal. It is Tuesday. I hope the day is going well wherever you're watching or listening to this around the world. As always, thank you for joining me. I really do appreciate it. Plenty to get stuck into today. We're going to talk about Nico Williams. The sort of saga, if you want to call it that, seems to be coming to an end. Certainly from an Arsenal point of view, the noise now seems to suggest that Arsenal will not be signing Nico Williams, a player, of course, they have chased for a fairly long time, and Mikel Arteta would have loved to have brought him to the club, but it appears he has his heart staying on Spain and a move to Barcelona. So we'll talk about that. We're going to talk kind of about Andrea Berta, because I think it's interesting sort of discourse starting about Andrea Berta and the work that he's doing. So I want to give my thoughts on that. Got lots and lots of questions and comments from you guys to get stuck into as well about things like Riccardo Calafiori, Gyokeres, Sesko strikers, of course, all that sort of stuff I'll get stuck into. Just to point out for Inside Arsenal Patreon members, the Arsenal Press Pass is also being recorded today. Myself, Sam and Sai are getting together. We're going to answer loads of your questions in a mailbag special. So keep your eyes peeled for that. And if you're not an Inside Arsenal member on Patreon yet and you want to become one and be able to watch the Press Pass show and ask questions and all that sort of stuff and watch all the extra content that's going to come your way and get all of my usual Inside Arsenal shows, ad-free, access to the Discord, all of that sort of stuff, you can sign up to become a member. The link is down there in the description. You can find it on my social media channels as well. Right, let's start with Nico Williams, shall we? A player that we know, Arsenal got a long-standing interest in Nico Williams. They tried to get him out of Bilbao last summer. Didn't happen. He decided to stay with his hometown club and stay for another season. Arsenal still had an interest in Nico Williams going into this summer, but it certainly appears now the noises coming out from around the Williams camp in Spain is that he has decided he wants to move to Barcelona. Bayern Munich are also pushing very, very hard for him as well. But Barcelona is the club that he would like to sign for if he does decide to leave Bilbao, who are also trying to get him to sign a new contract. Saw that David Ornstein had reported earlier on today as well that Arsenal have now called their interest in Williams because of the sort of decision that he has made, the fact that he's sort of waiting around for Barcelona, which, to be fair, and I've got a question here actually on it from DJ on the Inside Arsenal Discord channel. He says, "Hi Charles, with it looking like Williams is off to Barca, do you think that's a bullet dodge? Massive wages, think he lacks consistency and feels more suited to the Spanish league than the Prem. I know he'd not long returned from injury, but he looked like a passenger against United a couple of months ago. Think we've made a smart choice not to pull the trigger on him. Would love to know your thoughts." Which is quite interesting because I really like Nico Williams, and I kind of look at Nico, and I get your point there, DJ, about the sort of performances against Manchester United, and but I kind of look at Williams and I look at how he performs when he plays for Spain, surrounded by better players, and he just comes alive. He's electric. I'd have loved Nico Williams at Arsenal. I look at him as a player who's really ready to explode as well. He's still young, and you kind of look at him and think he can make the step to the next level and really go up a level in a new team. And I think he would have brought something completely different to Arsenal. So I don't really look at it, in answer to your question, as a bullet dodged. I kind of look at it with a bit of sadness, really. I just think he would have been really exciting. We kind of look at Arsenal needing a bit of a game changer, someone who can get fans sort of on their feet, someone who can open up a game which is sort of drifting away and not really much happening. I look at Williams as someone who can really do that. And I don't, and this isn't a slant on Martinelli or anyone like that on the left side. I think Martinelli and Trossard have done decent jobs, but I think that is certainly an area that Arsenal need to look to sort of improve on and strengthen on. And I think Williams would have done that. And so, I don't really look at it as a bullet dodged. I'm a bit sad, really, that he's not going to. He wouldn't be my first choice. I'd actually have Rodrigo. It would be my first choice. So if this all sort of ultimately means that Arsenal end up signing Rodrigo at some point later down the line in this window, then absolutely fine. So he's not my absolute first choice, but I do look at him as someone who'd have been really exciting. I'd have been very excited by that signing because of what I think he could become after this next move. I've had lots of people sort of messaging me about this and saying, well, look, you look at his numbers compared to Martinelli's, and Martinelli's are better almost than Williams. And I think that's a really fair point as well. So I don't think Williams necessarily comes in and immediately raises the level of the team. He certainly raises the level of the squad. But I do think Martinelli is very underrated by an awful lot of people. And so Yeah, it's not. I'm not devastated by it. I think that it would have been an exciting signing. I think he has the ingredients to go on massively up another level. But as I said, Rodrigo's still my absolutely first choice on this one. But I think Arteta will be a bit sad about it because Arteta's obviously wanted him for a long, long time, and the club haven't been able to sign him. So I think Arteta will be a little bit disappointed by it because he was one of the players who was sort of high up on his list. But it's just about now being able to go on and getting someone else. This one's out. It's not happening. Go and get someone else. And I think that's the key thing for Arsenal right now. It also sort of opens up, and this chat has been going on for a while now. I see it in the comments, and I'm really surprised by it. I mean, Carlton's got in touch here. He said, once again, it's the middle of June, and people are already calling for Berta's head. I genuinely despise transfer window discourse. And I think that's a really fair. I think it's a really fair comment because I just don't see how you can really sort of criticise Berta at this point. We are literally in mid-June. The transfer window, the main section of the transfer window opened yesterday. It is far too early. He's also come in, it's a new club. He's getting used to it. You just can't judge until the end of this transfer window. You really can't. As much as we'd have all loved Arsenal to have gone out and done really early business, and we could be sitting here now, with that sort of warm glow of having a new striker on board, having a left winger on board, and pre-season about to start, and all the new players are coming in. Ideally, yes, we could have that, but you don't always get that sort of thing. It's very, very rare. And so I just don't think you can really judge Berta at this point on the job he's doing. I sort of take it on face value. I look at what I've heard, and I think he's apparently making a good impression behind the scenes. I think the Gabriel deal is a really good deal that he's done, and he really did take a firm grasp of that deal and get it over the line. So he has credit in the bank for that. But ultimately, when it comes to transfers, he's been brought in to make the deals happen. That's what he's been brought in to do. And until we get to the end of this window and we see what deals he has made happen, what he's got over the line, I think it is very, very hard to judge. I understand the frustration. I've got sort of two different views on it in the comments here. Van Olga says, don't mind the tactic of getting them all lined up before pulling the trigger, but the time needed to pull the trigger still seems very long. I don't understand how it's mid-June and we aren't sure which player we want yet. It shouldn't take us another month to decide between Sesko and Gyokeres. That should have been known by the time the season has ended. I'm hesitant to let it slide because it's the first season, because that's partly why we replaced Edu. I mean, they didn't replace Edu. Edu went. If Edu hadn't decided to go, I think he'd still be in the job right now. So it wasn't like he was sacked and Arsenal replaced him to bring in someone else who was who could do a better job than Edu. It was Edu's decision to leave. I think when you say there, we aren't sure which player we want yet, I think they will be sure. I don't know. We don't know as sort of journalists sort of trying to find out. But I would be stunned if Arsenal didn't know who their main target was at this point. I just think they obviously do. They just haven't gone for it yet. They're not in the position or they don't think they're in a position to be able to go for it yet. For whatever reason that is, I don't know. But I'd be stunned if they don't know who their main target is. Mike says, I can't believe how many people expect Arsenal to just decide who the player is that they want and then go and buy him. It's not that simple. There are more parties involved than just Arsenal. The other club, the player, the agents, and more than one person at Arsenal and the selling club. They all have to come to agreement. The more people involved, the more complex. Haven't even mentioned lawyers and solicitors yet. And that is a very good point as well. I do feel like Arsenal take longer. And I don't know if that's because we just pay more attention to Arsenal, but I do kind of feel like Arsenal take longer than most clubs to get deals over the line. And I think when you look at how Arsenal runs and the people at the top upstairs who are doing it, sort of Tim Lewis, all that sort of, they are very lawyer sort of heavy in the way they operate. And Tim Lewis is basically running the club from the English side anyway. And he's a lawyer at heart. And for someone at the moment who's going for a big deal, trying to buy a house, lawyers and solicitors just take forever to get things over the line, or it certainly seems that way. And I do wonder if that sort of plays into how it does seem Arsenal seems to sort of procrastinate over getting deals over the line. But again, it is only mid-June. And I know it's horrible to hear me say it. It is only mid-June. We do still have to sort of bear that in mind. And I'm sure things will start to happen soon. Here's one from Addy Meeks on the Inside Arsenal Discord. He says, hi, Charles. Been watching the Club World Cup here in the US, and top Brazilian teams look at the level, if not better than Porto and Benfica. I think this is a red flag in terms of the Gyokeres pursuit. I get the Portuguese league has ended, so it might be a factor, but I'm not sure how much of a difference it would make. Gyokeres has experience in the Championship, but I don't think top clubs would be paying 60 million and over 200k in wages a week for a striker that scored 22 goals in the Championship. Could it also be that he only works in a 3-back system versus a 4-back system? These are just some thoughts that I have with Gyokeres. To me, there's much more questions on Gyokeres than Sesko, and I think they're all fair points. I think the whole Portuguese league thing has obviously been highlighted an awful lot when it comes to the strength of the sort of teams and the defensive that Gyokeres has been facing week in, week out in Portugal, and how many goals he scored. I think it's undeniable that that's an issue. No one's expecting him to score those amount of goals in the Premier League, though. No one thinks he's going to come here and score 45 goals next year in the Premier League. You've got to sort of maybe half that would be the aim. Look, both of them come with risks. I think there's no doubt about it. I think Gyokeres, clearly, there is the whole Portuguese league thing, the Darwin Núñez factor, all that sort of stuff. But people will point to the record he had in the Champions League, which was fairly good. Again, didn't play the best teams aside from Manchester City, and 2 of the goals he scored against City were penalties. But he has got a decent enough record in the Champions League, so he'll point to that. But both players come with risks. That's it. There's no foregone conclusion here when it comes to the strikers. No one you can look at and think he is definitely going to be a hit. So whoever they sign comes with risks, whether it be Sesko, whether it be Gyokeres, or whether it potentially be someone else. Interestingly, and Kieran has got in touch on YouTube. Now, Kieran, I don't know if you remember, I answered a question from Kieran, or he sent something in a couple of days ago. He's based in Oviedo, where Santi Cazorla's playing. It was after Santi had scored the free kick to send him into the playoff final. And Kieran got in touch, said he was a restaurant. He was a chef, worked in a restaurant over there, and Santi comes in. And he's got in touch here, and he says, Real Oviedo update. Santi has a knock, and unfortunately couldn't feature as Oviedo lost in the first leg 1-0 to a first-minute goal. They also missed a penalty to equalise. This Saturday is the second leg at home. We'll see if Santi can return and turn it round and secure promotion. And then Kieran got in touch. Said, extra update. They've just found out they're all coming to dinner tonight. I'll send those best regards that you wish. And then his final update from last night. Extra update for those interested. Santi said Sesko over Gyokeres. So there you go. Santi Cazorla has spoken. Thank you for the updates and the insider knowledge on Santi's transfer thinking. Kieran, do appreciate it. Santi Cazorla wants Sesko rather than Gyokeres. There you go. Thanks, Kieran. And I hope the weekend goes well when Oviedo get the win and Santi ends it very, very happy. Jacob asks, how is it too expensive to sign Gyokeres and Sesko, but not one of them, and Nico or Rodrigo? Because I don't think it's too expensive to sign Gyokeres and Sesko. That's not what I'm saying. It won't happen. I just don't think it will happen because they're not going to sign 2 main strikers, 2 number 9s. They've already got Kai Havertz, and if Kai Havertz is going to play a hell of a lot of minutes. If you don't like it, then fine. But he is. I think we all have to accept that, and I'm quite happy to accept it because I think Kai Havertz is a really good player. He's going to play an awful lot of minutes. They're not going to sign Sesko and Gyokeres in the same summer, 2 out-and-out number 9s. They I don't. If you say you sign one of them first, sign Gyokeres first. Sesko's not going to come. If you then go to him and say, right, we'll sign Gyokeres, but we want to sign you as well. He's going to go, well, how am I going to play any minutes? You got Kai Havertz, you got Gyokeres. That's why it's not going to happen. It's not to do with finances and money. It's to do with squad building. As much as we've all kind of forgotten about Gabriel Jesus, he is coming back before Christmas, and Arsenal are paying him 200 grand a week. So you're not going to have like 4 strikers paying £1 million a month, basically, for Havertz, Gyokeres, Sesko, and Jesus. You just can't. It's squad building. It's wage bill handling. It's just that's why it's not going to happen. It's not to do with sort of the money in terms of the actual transfer fees. It's about the squad building. Michael's got in touch. Says, hi, Charles, commentating from Saratoga Springs, that New York, USA. I personally would tell my fellow Gooners to calm down. Berta and Arteta are adjusting to each other and both understand the importance of the number 9 decision. I believe they aren't being lazy and trying to pinch pennies. It is just a very integral decision for the future of the club. Additionally, I wanted to ask you about the possibility of adding more defensive depth this summer. Do you think the club would opt for a young player like Hato or instead go for a rotational player with top-level experience to increase our depth? I enjoy waking up to your videos daily. Thank you for the great content. Thank you very much, Michael. I would say they will go for a younger player when it comes to the centre-back position. I think we've already kind of seen that with the interest they had in Howson and the fact that there's the interest is still there in Gerard Hato as well. I think if they do bring in more defensive depth this summer, I think they will go to the sort of younger. You go back to Victor Reis as well, the Brazilian that Manchester City signed in January. Arsenal were in for him as well. So it's all these younger centre-backs they're looking, which kind of makes sense as well when you've got Saliba and Gabriel as your out-and-out partnership. I think, sort of bring someone in, let them learn on the job for a little bit beneath the pair of those. So yeah, I think if they do go someone, I think it'll be a younger player rather than someone with sort of real big top level experience. Jelly Belly says, I'm already sick to death of talking about player X or Y linked to us, as I'm sure you are, Charles. So here's a different question. Are you surprised at how slow Arsenal are moving in the market? Do you even think Arsenal are actually moving slowly? I get transfers are hard, but we've had 12 to 24 months chasing some of these targets. Even some of the contract renewals seem to have been really slow, don't they? It's great Gabby has done, but how MLS and Ethan have not been done is a case of the club sitting on the news. No, it's definitely not a case of the club sitting on the news. They just haven't been done yet. And look, they're all complicated. These are big contracts you're talking about. I get this sort of MLS and Ethan ones because they're younger players. You'd think they'd be easy, but these are two younger players who'll have the world's best clubs. We've already seen it with MLS, having them knocking on the door, speaking to their agents, offering loads of money. So it's not the easiest. There's still no big contracts are the easiest things to get done. Look at what happened with Liverpool. Look at how much that dragged on with players like Salah, Van Dijk, Trent, who they ended up losing. So they're just not easy to get over the line, especially when you're juggling so many contract talks at the same time. In terms of, do I think Arsenal are moving slowly? It's a hard one to answer that, because I think as a fan, I think they're moving slowly because, again, you just want, as a fan, your club to go out and do business really, really early. And so it's done. So, but then I just keep going back to the fact the transfer window opened yesterday. So, the main transfer window opened yesterday. Yes, there was one before that for the Club World Cup mainly, but the main one opened yesterday. So are they moving slowly? I don't know. It feels like it, but I don't think from sort of real terms that they probably are just yet. We're still weeks away from pre-season starting. Got one here from AFC Cape Town now on Riccardo Calafiori. And he says, Ricky isn't going anywhere. He gives us what we lack at fullback. Skelly is control, Ricky is attack. I'm hopeful of seeing Skelly and Ricky partnership of left 8 and left back. Not sure that's going to necessarily happen, but I think you're right in terms of the difference that Arsenal can bring to the table when it comes to those left back options. When it be Lewis Skelly, then you replace him and bring on Calafiori and bring on the chaos that he brings. I think Calafiori is such an interesting player. Obviously, the injuries have been so frustrating last season. It just stopped us really being able to see what he can bring. But when he is on the pitch, and when he has been on the pitch, you can see the difference he makes to this Arsenal side, and the quality that he can bring, and how he can confuse the opposition by his runs and where he pops up. And they're just thinking, how do I track this guy? He's just absolutely everywhere. He's a left back, and yet he's over on the right wing. He's left wing. He's centre forward. I think there's so much he can offer this team, with his athleticism, with his ability in the final third, and with his strength and his physique and his physicality, all that sort of stuff. I think there's so much more to come from Calafiori. I think he's a really interesting player, and I just hope next season that he stays injury-free and can really get a go in this team, can really offer a lot, whether that be from starting or whether it be from the bench. I just think there's so much more to bring from him. So, I just wanted to flag that up from AFC Cape Town. Thought that was an interesting point. And that's it for today, everyone. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Like I said, if you are an Inside Arsenal Patreon member, then you will be able to see the Arsenal Press Pass show that will go out a little bit later on today with myself, Sam, and Simon. If you haven't signed up yet and you want to watch that, then you can. Get down into the description below. The link is there. Just copy and paste it into your browser. It'll take you straight to Patreon, and you can sign up there. But if you do sign up, I would urge you do it direct through Patreon rather than through Apple, because for some reason Apple add on more money, and you don't want to do that. So if you do it direct through Patreon, it's just £6 a month for all your extra content, your ad-free content, giveaways, all that sort of stuff. So get involved if you haven't already. Thanks for watching, everyone. Thanks for listening. Speak to you soon. Bye-bye.